Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.
Welcome back to the Global Indian Podcast, home to the greatest conversations and the official platform for open and liberal minds. Because yes, let's face it, we are everywhere. Now, as you know, every single week we plunge ourselves into the human experience behind our perceptions of identity, take a second look at the countries we now call home, and tackle the big conversations. Well, this week I take a virtual journey back to the Caribbean, into the wonderful island of Antigua, where I'm joined by a fellow global Indian, Brian Stuart-Young. Now, Brian's conversation follows with another discussion we had a couple of weeks ago with Kaza, who owns a bank in Nevis, and we had a look at the role of the banking industry, especially in areas of national identity building, well-being, and being a cultural custodian for the elements that really define what the nation is. In this podcast, we take a look at the wonderful, weird, murky world of crypto. We have a discussion around about climate sensitivities, and we also have a look at the evolution of the banking industry, especially within a region that is hotly contested over. As a way of introduction, Brian is a CEO and the director of major banking institution in Antigua. He also is a champion of all sorts climate, and he's been working tirelessly towards new innovative ideas that can reframe the conversation and, more importantly, enable the economic potential of this to reach the baseline of communities. But before then, a quick note from our dear sponsors. If you want to find out more about the Global Indian series, by the way, well, it couldn't be easier. Simply come to the website, which is www.globalindianseries.com. There you can listen to this podcast and the entire repertoire of discussions so far.
Hi, this is Dharmesh Shingala, co-founder of Novus. At Novus, we believe technology leads the way for a meaningful change. We are on a mission to change the way corporations, governments, and institutions interact with information. Same as the Global Indian podcast, help people transform for a better future. Find out more on how we are inspiring global change, either at the Global Indian Series website or Novus website, to learn more about our innovative software solutions. From our family to yours, I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you.
My name is Chitra Stern, and I am a proud Global Indian Ambassador and CEO of Martignal Resorts and Martignal Residences. We pride ourselves on the journeys that define a community, and our developments bring people together. Did you know that over 70,000 people just like us call Portugal home? The Global Indian journey has brought people together in a meaningful way, and on behalf of all of us at Martignal, we want to thank you for joining us in these remarkable conversations. We look forward to seeing you here in Lisbon post-COVID.
Hi, my name is Divya, and I'm co-founder of the Global Indian Podcast. Before you get to today's show, I've got a quick favour to ask. If you've been enjoying our conversations, I'd love if you could take just 1 minute to leave us a review on the platform that you're listening to us on and share our work to friends and family. It helps us out a lot. Word of mouth is the primary way that we grow. Thanks for your continued support.
Thank you, and greetings, Raj, and greetings to all of your people, all of your audience that join you. I think you're pretty much worldwide right now, aren't you?
I think we're getting there. I know that you get the podcast directly on your phone as well. So if we can reach Brian's mobile, I think we can reach anywhere else on the planet. So we're pretty lucky. I suppose, Brian, the first quick question to have is, what's it like to be you? Because you got this incredibly fascinating background.
Well, I hail from Guyana. I one of those that I was fortunate enough to be packed off to a boarding school in England at about age 11, and pretty much grew up or had my youthful years there. Went back to Guyana, qualified, and started working there. But I have since lived in the States. I got a Fulbright scholarship at some point and worked there, and then returned again to the Caribbean. And I think I visited just about every island that there is. And in 1976, decided I needed to pick a new location, and that was Antigua. And so I've been here now for a generation and a half, and it's been a wonderful place for my family. They adopted my wife and I, and we adopted Antigua as our home. Now, I'm coming from Guyana. You may know that Guyana has about 5 or 6 different bloods as such in there. I probably have about 5 of them inside of me. But when I was looking at a place to change and live in, I looked closely. Quite frankly, Barbados was a very big attraction. But when I looked at Antigua, I could see the potential in the future because it was a very calming place that had a lot of opportunity to grow. And I then learned that this was the home of a fair amount of wealthy Americans having second homes that came here after the war. And they too had searched various islands, and they decided to reside here. And in fact, they have homes passed on in their family that are still here. And so I came here. I have 2 children. My 2 children are married here to Antiguans. They have between them 5 grandchildren. And this is very much my
home, isn't it? So I suppose coming from Guyana, having that Caribbean type of culture behind you, what does it mean to be Antiguan then for you?
Well, Antigua, I consider, Guyana used to have a brand in the early days that it was the most hospitable, friendly place to visit. I found it in the same way with Antigua. And my family were very happy to be able to join here. When I first came here, I guess I remember I had about 5 different jobs working at the same time. and then eventually it was more focused on the banking side. And I just grew in that area by learning, by working, by committing myself. I've always been a person that it didn't matter where I worked or who I worked with. I mentally owned that company and would serve it as if it was my own stock. Yeah. And I think that's the way that I try to encourage everyone to grow. I've said to my staff several times, I want each of you to be looking to be able to take over my chair now.
Do you feel that Antigua now is home? Out of all the countries that you've been to, everywhere else on the planet, because you often travel as well, I know. Is Antigua more than just where your roots are, in the sense of your grandchildren, but is it now your culture?
Yes, it is. It is. I feel very deeply rooted here, very committed. I've tried to use my banking side and background to be able to serve the economy, because I think many people come and they visit Antigua. Many people pass through Antigua. Many people come and work here and then pass through Antigua. My family is very firmly rooted here in Antigua, and we believe in the people, and we believe that it is a very democratic country. It has a very free press, and we believe that it still has a bundle of new opportunities that can be developed.
One thing that's quite interesting about you, because I know that you've been involved a lot when it comes to climate change and having a look at the role of the banking institutions, especially in combating some of the bigger challenges that are taking place across the region. Now, as a bank, most people look at you and as one of the most senior bankers in the region as saying, are banks purely about profit and loss? And then Soho, an organization like yours, comes about and says, well, we're much more than that. We're actually looking at how we can actually be custodians for the country to combat some of the bigger challenges that we're facing. Now, Brian, I suppose the question is, why do you bother? And why are you getting involved now when it comes to the climate change resilience that Antigua is trying to develop?
Raj, I find it one of the most interesting and exciting subjects that we need to be involved in, which is to participate in initiatives to address climate change. I do know, I mean, my family asked me when am I retiring. My colleagues, many of them have retired. and I do believe that it would be nice to retire for sure, but the challenges and the opportunities to be able to take a company and take a country and align it to what are the demands of climate change, and to be able to contribute to even personal individual needs, social goals. We talk, there's a great deal of discussion about sustainable development goals. Well, when you pare that down, and certainly instruments and treaties that came out of the Paris Climate Agreement and other frameworks like that are very critical. But when you pare it down, it has to be the people of the community that buy into it, that develop it. I know, for example, that the AOSIS countries and certainly the small island developing states, we are looking, and we felt very proud of our governments. The Antigua and Barbuda government was certainly a leader in it, to be able to make sure that loss and damage got onto the agenda at COP27. But we know that these changes will take time. So there's no magic door that immediately gets open when something goes on to an agenda. And we believe very strongly that it has to be the country and the people that are going to generate areas that are going to help to change this. I'm aware, and my group had worked towards encouraging our government to be able to work closely with one of the major climate change organizations to conduct an MOU at COP27, which will now allow that entity to come into Antigua to evaluate what is our potential for carbon credits. We see a small island state like Antigua. We only have 108 square miles on Antigua. But we're 3 islands: Antigua, Barbuda, Redondo, and with the other 2 islands, maybe we have another 50 square miles. But our triangulation, when it comes to our special economic zone in the sea, that actually creates a space in excess of 40,000 square miles. Now, we have this around us, and each island will have some more, some less, because you're always having to measure your equidistances between other parties. But there is opportunity in there. They call that opportunity, I guess, the blue economy. And I'm absolutely convinced that how climate change has worked with land-based carbon issues and created certain principles, such as the REDD+ that we know with forestry and areas like that. There will be a blue plus, and that blue plus opens a door for the SIDS to be able to explore it. We have to be able to evaluate it. We have to be able to have it audited by identified and recognized third-party auditors for carbon credits. There's the gold standard, there's Vera, there are about 3 or 4 others, including Microsoft, that are all equipped to do such evaluations. But once we do that evaluation, I believe that blue economy is the clean equivalent of having oil and gas.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, I suppose it makes sense, because when we have a look at some of the big funds out there, such as Norges, for example, they're now de-investing themselves in anything to do with petrocarbon. And now when you look at India, for example, they're looking at their industrialization using green renewable resources. It makes sense. So then when people look at the Caribbean, when people look at Antigua, and they say, well, what are the opportunities for these small nations, especially post-COVID? And COVID dramatically changed things such as tourism. There's huge amounts of job loss. You, as one of the most senior business individuals on Ireland, do you see the future now being green and blue economy-wise?
Yes, I see a lot of that in there. And I think Antigua has been blessed by its geographical positioning, because I think it is well positioned also to be a hub for many of these activities. We have the opportunity of having one of the most modern airports, international airports here, and I think there's a role there that still has to be developed and built out. As you will well know, most of the Caribbean islands that are dependent on tourism, we all have been looking north.
Yeah.
So the main flow of this service that we provide is towards North America, Europe, England, Canada, areas like that.
So then, as a bank, then there's a lot of speaker. I know when we had Kazaran, he spoke about even his bank in Nevis, that the world almost is holier than the Pope. They look at Caribbean banks and they say, well, you guys have done X, Y, and Z. You're not standing the test of investigation when it comes to transparency. How do you react to that? Because it seems you guys have to go through far more loops than any US bank or any UK bank.
Believe me. Not only that, but all of our banks, I mean, it is far more difficult for Antiguans and Barbudans to open up bank accounts in Antigua than it is for them to jump on a plane into Miami or the UK and open up an account there. I mean, you can go to the US and open up an account in a day. If anybody opens an account in most of the Caribbean territories in under a week with a bank, they're fortunate, because we've become so sensitive to all of the ALM, CFD type issues. We are all fighting to be compliant with whether it is the OFAC requirements, whether it's the FATCA requirements, the OECD, the CRS. We have to comply with that whole range, and Antigua is one of the few places where our political or politically sensitive people complain. They say, everywhere else, the definition of a PEP, a politically exposed person, is defined as a foreign politically exposed person. In other words, it is very unlikely that the homegrown politicians are going to be attempting to do anything in illicit activities by keeping the money at home. But you'll find with Caribbean banks, they only use one brush. one. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're foreign or you're local. So even and let's face it, the governor of a central bank is a PEP.
Yeah.
So it's a broad route. All the senior government public servants will be PEPs.
Yeah. And when you have economies like that, where a lot of people are literally working as civil servants, how do you deal with that? Right? Like, what are some of the big challenges facing a country like Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean as a whole?
Well, the Caribbean, we've, as you will know, we've been fighting for years under our CARICOM community arrangements. We really need to be a more collective space. Part of the problem is that we have the Eastern Caribbean currency, but then there are different currencies, whether you're in Jamaica and Trinidad, Barbados, and Guyana. Now, the interest that has been given to central bank using digital coins is something I think that will have to grow, even though there are concerns about cryptocurrency as such, and that is going to have its own rebirth at this time, and I'm sure it will. But there are opportunities for central bank digital coins. However, they have to work alongside more domestic payment utility services. And that's where our banks need to lead in to create those types of services that can adopt and work with a digital coin. And then we could have a Caribbean digital coin that could easily allow movement of funds across the region and help to cement the community as such. So I think there's some very important steps that banks have to take at this time, and I'm sure they will be taken. You will find that it's critical for banks to align themselves with the FinTech community and society, because they're being practiced far more in innovation than banks are. Banks are more traditional, and but the pressure of working with a FinTech, I think, assists that. In my institution, we do have a subsidiary that is a FinTech grouping that will serve banks and processing. They've got banks in Guyana, they've got banks in Antigua, in Jamaica, in Haiti, and they are more focused on the payments programming side. I think I can see that is something that is going to be
that's
important.
Because when we look towards the crypto world, I remember I was speaking to a couple of colleagues and we're speaking about the crypto coin, obviously OneCoin, and how much of a bonanza that created, because it created a lot of lack of trust. And actually, Kaza wrote an article recently about the crypto king who disappeared in India recently. Like, when you look at these fundamental shifts in the way that banking's done and look at the online space, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have towards that?
Well, you see, the whole question is trust, and that's what banking has, which the cryptocurrency arena doesn't have. And so, what you really want to do is to find a way to bridge that gap. And you see, the banks themselves have been hesitant in getting into the crypto space. And in fact, the regulators themselves have been very guarded about them doing so. But I think we might be missing an important point of evolution for payments by not saying if in fact banks were more adapting some of these payment services, utilizing more blockchain background to be able to make it efficient, that then the community would have a better trust, or would be able to continue the trust syndrome into the bank, which will then take them into these improved payment services that can better serve the communities.
I suppose that's the issue, isn't it? We place a great reliance on the integrity of leadership, especially those within the banking sector. And therefore, when we do that, we have to have a look at the evidence that suggests that. Now, as a bank, when you look towards the future of Antigua, what are some of the opportunities outside of the green space, the blue economy, and the crypto that you think actually these are game-changing ideas that not only support the social fabric of the country, but also enhance the people and the community's welfare within the country as well?
Well, I think one step has to be that we don't give up our focus on where we're attracting tourism, but we have to build alternatives. Now, a lot of the world, and that means Asia, including China, and the Middle East, and even Africa, we don't really get them being able to travel into the Caribbean.
Mm.
Now, here we are, a cricketing nation. We've got some of the most wonderful heroes and stalwarts of cricket.
Let's steady on here, Brian. Let's steady on. It's a cricketing nation. I want to say it's the cricketing nation.
It is. It has been. It has been. And so can you imagine if we had proper linkages, and I'm referring to air links, and people to being able to travel. We have proper air links. If you were playing India in the Caribbean, do you know you'd have plane loads of Indians coming to be able to follow that team and celebrate the matches across the Caribbean? If you had Bangladesh, the same thing would happen. If you have had some of the Middle East countries that are playing cricket, so you've got a whole sports tourism opportunity that has gone untapped. Now, what is the big problem? The big problem is that many of those people from those areas do not have access to visas because to travel to the Caribbean, because to travel to the Caribbean means having to travel to either the UK or to the US or Canada to then come on to the Caribbean. And they don't have those visas. So we need to explore with airlines in Asia, in China, in Africa, looking at creating more direct flights to us. And it doesn't have to be always direct. There are some linkages, such as Frankfurt Airport, that will permit flights to come in there and have people come in transit. But we will have to have our airlines picking them up from Frankfurt to bring them on. Now that would change our entire aspect of how we've conceived tourism, because we would have to be building hotels that can better serve some of those markets, serve some of those cultures. We have the opportunity. We have one of the best seaports in the Caribbean, and we've just had significant investments in improving it. If we were a hub for some of that transportation and linkage coming in from these new markets, they could come here to Antigua, spend a couple of days in our hotels, go on to a home-ported cruise ship, go and visit another 6 Caribbean islands, come back here and take off again.
But I must say I'm smiling because I'm thinking, I know the view outside my window in London. It is 50 shades of grey skies and it is raining. It's almost like a British summer all over again. And you're telling me about this romanticized version of visiting Antigua and traveling right the way around. It does make sense. Do you think it's a lack of will, or is it a lack of know-how from the international markets, or maybe some of the companies within the Caribbean to make this happen?
Well, you see, that needs financing. So we're going to need some external financing to give support to it. There are different areas of financing that are coming on board. The Africa's Afri-Exim Bank just allocated, I think, about 1.5 billion for Caribbean development work. In China, there is the Belt and Road Initiative, and their airlines have a lot of extra capacity and have had it and now since the pandemic. That could be generated. So I think that with the right package of investors, we can identify those opportunities. With the same right package of investors, we can expand our home porting. And let's face it, such a program wouldn't just benefit Antigua. It would be, if you're going to visit the 6 or 7 islands this time, and that's in the south, and 6 and 7 in the north, what you're doing is expanding the economic opportunities for all of the Caribbean.
Do you know, Brian, what I find interesting with you is because every time we do speak, you are almost the official ambassador, custodian of Antigua. You're a banker by day and almost an Antigua cheerleader by night. I should really put that the other way around, otherwise I give people the wrong impression of what you get up to on Friday evenings. But it is really interesting because Antigua is a home for you. Now, when you think, to sum it up for our audience out there, we have an audience in over 48 countries around the planet. CEOs, heads of states, people of real know-how. What do you want them to remember about a country like Antigua, especially now, where the whole idea of national identity is more important than ever?
Well, Antigua is a friendly environment. It is a safe environment. Yes, we look at the Caribbean and it is a safe zone, but Antigua is particularly safe. It is a place that, when you look at the volatility of what is happening in the rest of the world, it is a good place to be able to visit. And I think that the economic opportunities for once you come to visit, you will see a bundle of opportunities that can perhaps attract your investment. We've just launched in Antigua just about 3 weeks ago, the opening of our new commercial port. Now, the first port that was done in Antigua was more than 50 years ago by Antigua's father of the nation, V.C. Byrd. At that time, it didn't have any provision for containers. So now the whole port has been modernized, and it actually has the opportunity under this new design that has now been opened to be a transshipment hub. And I think that will be positive. And once you have that, then you are creating logistics. Logistics creates other work. It creates other employment. And,
it's a virtuous cycle, isn't it? But a lot of these developments have happened in the last couple of years in Antigua, it seems. It seems like there's this renaissance of Antigua going on for the last 45 years or so, which is really interesting because you've been looking at the airport, for example. I know that there was conversations that we had about the city. Then there was conversations around green bond. There seems to be a new willingness that's been there, that's been injected in. Do you think that willingness will continue then into the future as well?
I think so. Now, I mean, I think the commitment is there in the community. Banks like us, we work with all parties. We work with all political sides. We have to, because life changes. And what is important is that the thread of the opportunity for development, and that should be, in this case now, sustainable development, it continues to be engaged and continues to increase its stakeholders so that we can all work towards achieving the goals for society.
I like that. It's about national development, national prosperity building, isn't it? It's everybody
Absolutely.
coming together to say this is what the future of a nation looks like and operating without fear or favor. Because you have to have, obviously, the banking systems, the financial services, hand in hand with the tourism industries. And it is this virtuous circle that almost you have been the godfather for. Brian, I could speak to you forever, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I think it's quite remarkable for the fact that when people look at the banking industry, they normally look at it with the eyes of a monopoly board, or they look at it with fear. But the fact is, as a bank, what you've done is not only showcase the very best of what Antigua is doing, but you're providing a lot more trust within the system itself. And being that you guys are, I want to say the word overtly regulated, which I think is fair to say, it just shows that you stand the test of investigation at every single turn. Brian, it is fantastic to see you once more.
Raj, I thank you very much.
What an interesting discussion. I think what's really fascinating about Brian is not only is he the CEO and chair of one of the Caribbean's leading banks and institutions, but he truly cares about the way that the banking industry can reshape the future of a nation. I think it's bold thinking like that, backed up with honest, integral work that makes a difference. It's also fascinating when you get to meet with somebody like Brian, having a look at how his roots and his cultural identity has shifted the way in which he decides to do business. I look forward to finding out more about this incredible country called Antigua, especially in the many months to come on. As always, thank you for joining in, and thank you for continuing your journey with us on our 50 Shades of Brand discussions, which is travel the world. Until next week, I hope all remains well. Bye for now.
Global Indian Network. Print, TV, events, podcasts. Find out more at globalindianseries.com.